And then just for everyone who wants to listen along and read along and follow along, we're going to be looking at a part of the Bible, and it's early on in the Bible. It's called 2 Samuel chapter 6. And if you've got these blue-coloured Bibles, 2 Samuel, not 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel chapter 6 is on page 255. 255. So it's 2 Samuel, and you're basically looking for the big number 6. We're beginning at the first part of it. While you're finding that, it's teaching us something this morning about something that I learned in school. And I learned it specifically in school on one of the most difficult days of the year. No uniform day. No uniform day is a day when you get to come to school in your own clothes. But you know you can make a big mistake. It's in my school. I don't know about your schools. In my school, if you came to school on no uniform day with like some fake Nikes on, death. That was it. If someone found out those are fake, you're wearing fakes, you would die. I remember one kid was wearing fakes and they found him out. Oh, you don't want to be that kid. You're laughing, aren't you? Yeah, you're laughing. You know, you can spot some fake Jordans, can't you? Yeah, you know. How do you spot fake Jordans? Say again? You can tell by the back. Yeah, like stitching and stuff. To be fair, Jason there, he can spot fake trainers. I've got fake trainers by mistake, some fake. And he's like, they're fake, mile off. We prize authenticity, don't we? If you support a football team and you work out that actually some people are only there when the team's doing well, you go, you're fake. You weren't there when the team wasn't doing well. People really criticize the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Do you remember? Like when he had to do those presentations, and he had to keep saying, our thoughts are with the people who are suffering. Everyone just said, we don't believe him. He just doesn't seem genuine. We really prize authenticity. We want it to be real, don't we? And in one sense, that's what this part of the Bible is pointing us to this morning. Like real engagement with God. Or what we would call, if we use the church words, is like real worship. No sort of surface stuff, no fake. So that's what we're going to be looking at just as a theme. A little bit of catch up. Some of us have been following along, maybe you know. We're looking at a part of the Bible where we look at some kings, specifically a king called David. In the big picture of the Bible, basically, you've got the whole world made good. We reject God, so we've got this thing called sin comes into the world. Sin is like a curse. So we want a blessing. And God says he's going to bring that blessing, and he brings it through, and he's starting to bring it through a king. So we've got a cursed world that's looking for a king that's going to give them blessing. And they're lining up at the moment, and this king, it was looking like it was going to be a man called Saul. And if you've been following along, it wasn't going to be Saul. Saul basically rejected God, gone his own way. And then God had said, no, it's going to be, look to this king. His name is David. And if you were here a few weeks ago, we saw Saul had died, which means that David is going to be taking over. If you read the bits in between, there's a few chapters we're not going to be looking at. It's not pretty, all right? So you can imagine if suddenly your leader's taken away, you get a lot of, mafia-type behavior. Seems like football hooligan behavior, quite tribalistic. But essentially what happens is all the tribes get together and they say, yeah, we're going to have this David has been proven to be the right king for us. They have a ceremony to make him king. You might think that ceremony is ancient, but actually if you'd have watched the TV when King Charles became king, a lot of what King Charles went through is based on what David did when he became king. So think now of this storyline. Everyone knows this world is cursed. Everyone's looking to God for a sense of blessing. Everyone knows it's coming through this king, and this king actually coming into a particular land, and there being peace in that land. And this King David, just before we are now, he captures a city, and he says, this is our city now. It's Jerusalem, the city of peace. Things are starting to come together, okay? So in their minds and in their hearts, there is a sense of excitement. And it's like this has been building up. Something like, if you've ever experienced this, can you think about something you've worked to for years and years and years, finally coming to completion? Something that started small. It might be maybe a sense in older and you've had children move out of your house, but you can remember this was a little child I held in my arm, and now look at them standing on their own 2 feet, and they seem to be doing more in life than I did. There's a sense of that's right. It's come to completion. You feel warm, emotional, excited. If a couple reaches retirement and they promise themselves, we've worked hard, now we're finally here for this period of our lives. There's that sense of build-up coming to a certain point. And you have these people of God for generation upon generation. They have been waiting and working. They've had a promise from God. I'm going to give you an identity. You're going to be my people. I'm going to give you dignity. I'm going to give you a land. I'm going to give you blessing. I'm going to give you a king. I'm going to give you peace. And they're like, this has taken generation upon generation. Our forefathers told us about this. People have poured their lives into this. People have sacrificed for this. They've fought battles for this. They've trusted God for this. And it's all come to this point. Can you imagine what they're going through their head? You might have got to the end of a football tournament or something like that, World Cup, and gone, oh, I feel so emotional because of what's come before. This is that times a million. And at the center of it is their God. It's their God that's promised them this. And to understand their God, he gave them a way to think about him. He gave them an object. Anyone here seen Indiana Jones? Yeah. Indiana Jones, there's a special thing in there called the Ark of the Covenant, right? Get that out of your head and throw it away. I shouldn't have said that. In one sense it is, because there's a sense of awe around it. But it's this way of people understanding who their God was. In the middle of it was God's law, revealing what he was like, what his standard, what holiness is like. And at the top of it was this picture of mercy and forgiveness, that sacrifice needed to happen. So at the core of it was how you have a relationship with God. It represented their God to them. So when they finally have this moment of coming into a land of peace, they're like, go get the Ark of God. Let's bring it in. That's where we meet this passage. You're like, that's a long introduction, but hopefully we're all up to speed with where we are, yeah? So it sort of should make sense, some of the stuff that's happening. So now let's read, okay? So if you've got this Bible in front of you, look at the big number 6. We're going from verse 1. You might have a heading, Moving the Ark to Jerusalem. And I'm going to split this into 2 parts, and you'll see why. This is part number 1. Then David again gathered all the elite troops in Israel, 30,000 in all. He led them to Baalah of Judah to bring back the Ark of God, which bears the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, who is enthroned between the cherubim. They placed the Ark of God on a new cart and brought it from Abinadab's house, which was on a hill. Uzzah and Ahio, Abinadab's sons, were guiding the cart that carried the Ark of God. Ahio walked in front of the Ark, and David and all the people of Israel were celebrating before the Lord, singing songs and playing all kinds of musical instruments, lyres, harps, tambourines, castanets, and cymbals. Stop the reading there for a second. Does that make sense now? You can see this is a momentous event for this community, for these people. The weight of everything that had come before. And now they're thinking, we get to celebrate this God who's brought us here. Were they just going to bring that ark in like, okay, well, we're going to move this into the new city now. Let's just take it in there. We've ticked this off the list. Obviously. They couldn't contain themselves. You read that, we had a nice sing-song, not sing-song, but, we sang, and we didn't have castanets, but we had some of those instruments and things like that. Imagine that, times so much more. Like a carnival spirit, the sense of release and joy. You need music for that kind of thing. Arguably, they needed dancing to be able to express it properly. So that's what we see here. Now, You're reading along. You saw it. It gave you all that description, didn't it? Oh, a new cart. That's a nice detail. They're obviously taking this very seriously. They got a new cart to put this on. And we've got this idea that there's some oxes pulling this cart. In all the excitement, they'd forgotten to slow down and think about what they were doing. If they'd have read, you don't have to turn to it now, you can write it down if you want to check later, but earlier on in the Bible, there was actually descriptions of how you should do this. The book of Numbers, chapter 4, describes you need to respect this object, actually. The idea was you respected it by covering it, so people just couldn't just see it and treat it like normal. And actually, you couldn't just carry it around on an ark. The idea was that you got special people set aside to do this in a special way. They weren't just to put it with a cow pulling it. Get the priests to put it on their shoulders. Be very careful with this thing. There were instructions about how to do it, to take it seriously. They hadn't listened. Look down at the little number 6, verse 6, and we're going to keep following. But then they arrived at the threshing floor of Nacon. The oxen stumbled, and Uzzah reached out his hand and steadied the ark of God. Then the Lord's anger was aroused against Uzzah, and God struck him dead because of this. So Uzzah died right there beside the ark of God. You see that contrast there? In the middle of all of that festival spirit, the cart stumbles. I'm just going to put my hand out. I'm just going to put my hand out to stop it. And then the man's body just falls to the floor. People try and wake him, and he won't respond because he's dead. Even as you read it, the writer clearly wants us to get a sense of stark contrast. Carnival celebration, and then a silence over everybody, over the whole group. People are confused. What on earth went wrong? What did we do wrong? And there's a description, you can keep reading. David is perplexed, he's afraid, and he basically hides it somewhere. He says, I'm not sure what to do. And he hides the ark away for safekeeping. Now, some of you have come to church maybe for the first time. You've brought people, you're like, oh, this is a passage which is quite tricky. I hope he's going to explain it away. I hope he's going to make it sound a lot neater and nicer. As you read it, it shocks you, and I think it's meant to shock you. I don't think we are meant to just try and explain this away. It's trying to say, God is a serious deal. We need to take him seriously, and we wouldn't be doing the right thing for each other if we tried to explain this away. We might want to put our hands up and say, it just doesn't seem right for God to do something like this. But remember, what kind of world would we live in if we got to decide what God was actually like? You don't want a God that you get to decide what he's like. You want the authentic God, yeah? The true God. We were talking about authenticity, weren't we? And I think what's happening here is that there was a mindset back then that there sadly sometimes can be today, that God is basically like a lucky charm, like a football mascot that you'd have at a sports match. Someone there just to help you in your lives, just to sort of show that this is one who represents me, this is good. You can imagine, because they've beat their enemies, they're called the Philistines, if you remember them. If the Philistines would have won, they'd have done something quite similar. They'd have got a wooden statue of their God, and they'd have had a big party, and they'd go, look, our God won us. Our God was the best God. He's the strongest God. The trouble is, that is really, really bad theology. At that point, if you get to that stage, your God becomes something that serves you. You're worshipping something that meets your needs, that's less than you. Can you worship something less than you, or worship something that's greater than you? You don't worship a good luck charm. You don't worship a genie. And David had his victory over his enemies, and it was almost like he could have been slipping into this. Let's celebrate with our lucky charm. And he was so happy, you can be, that God brought judgment to his enemies. The one thing he didn't expect was for God to bring judgment on his own people. Surely God's a weapon that we can just point out on the things in the world that we don't like. We don't expect him to point at us, do we? But the God of heaven can't be treated like that. You don't want to worship a God that you can treat like a lucky charm. And so as we move on, that's the first part. You've got that really strong contrast, understanding who this God is. Part two, essentially, as he puts it in hiding, he realizes, actually, where the ark is, it's actually blessing the people. God is for us, but he's not just our lucky charm. In fact, there's a part of the Bible where God's people are going to battle, and they meet God, but he's sort of represented like an angel, and they ask him, they say, are you on our side? We're about to go to battle. Are you on our side? And you'd expect God to go, well, yes, of course I'm on your side. You're God's people. He says, no, I'm on my side. Are you on my side? The question isn't, is God on our side? The question is, are we on God's side? And that's what David was learning here. So let's continue. He realizes, okay, the problem is we need to make sure we're on God's side. The ark is blessing where it is. So let's carry on from verse 16. So you can drop down a little bit. And you might see a heading called Michal's contempt for David. So that's sort of where we're following from now. Verse 16 it says, but as the ark of the Lord entered the city of David, Michal, the daughter of Saul, that's the previous kin, looked down from her window. When she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she was filled with contempt for him. They brought the ark of the Lord and set it on its place alongside the special tent David had prepared for it. And David sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings to the Lord. And when he had finished his sacrifices, David blessed the people in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies. Then he gave every Israelite, man and woman in the crowd, a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, a cake of raisins. All the people returned to their homes. When David returned home to bless his own family, Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet him. She said in disgust, how distinguished of the king of Israel looked today, shamelessly exposing himself to the servant girls like any vulgar person might do. David retorted to Michal, I was dancing before the Lord, who chose me above your father and his family. He appointed me as the leader of Israel, the people of the Lord. So I celebrate before the Lord. Yes, and I am willing to look even more foolish than this, even to be humiliated in my own eyes. But those servant girls you mentioned will indeed think I am distinguished. So Michal, the daughter of Saul, remained childless throughout her entire life. Do you see? This is David going, I can't contain what God has done for me. He just stops and thinks for one moment about who he was and nothing and nobody, and the fact that God has brought him into his great plan. And he goes, how else can I respond? I can only respond in the way that God has treated me. And he does it. He worships properly. He makes sacrifices. He cleanses away sin and things like that. He gives out party food. He's like, everyone, all of you, enjoy these cakes. You should be enjoying what God has done. But his wife, she's not encouraged. She thinks, look, you should have a sense of dignity. I like being married to you because you're the king, and everyone up to us as being really impressive. But you're down there dancing with everybody else. And when he is judged by his wife, his response is, after the way God has treated me, the only appropriate way to behave is to express my joy. That's the only dignified way. And he says, you haven't even seen the half of it. I'm going to go even more. People are going to be even more shocked by how much I want to express my joy. It would be disrespectful of me not to celebrate. Doesn't matter if you're the king, at the top of the pile or at the bottom of the pile, you're all servants of God, and you all worship together, is David's response. So can you see that there's two parts to this passage, really, isn't there? You've got that first part which ends in that really sort of sober, serious, thought-provoking bit with Uzzah putting his hand out and dying. And the second part where David just justifies, you need to be able to express your joy over what God has done for you. And it's almost like, as you're reading along, and maybe you're thinking, oh, where's David going with this? It does feel like there's two very strong sort of polar ends to this, doesn't there? You've got a contrast. On one side, it seems to be a very strict understanding of how we engage with God. Yeah? On the other side, it seems to be emphasizing a sense of liberty and freedom, and that people can't judge you for how you celebrate God. Yeah? On one side, you have this man Uzzah. And as you read that, you go, yeah, you can't just do what you want. You're not just free to do whatever you think is best when you're engaging with God. But the other side, you have David who says, I'm not going to let anyone judge me and tell me what to do. It's between me and God how I celebrate him. And I think this is really helpful for us as we think about the basics of how we engage in God with worship. If we say praise and worship, you know, if I said to you worship and things like that, you sort of think, you could think potentially, yeah, we get the guitars out. I even said to Rebecca, and I apologized, about having a sing-song this morning. And then I took it back and said, no, it's not a sing-song, is it? But I just foolishly said that. But we can think like that, can't we? Yeah, worship, that's the sing-song bit. And this whatever we like, we can do that. Does that mean if you go to if you pay a stupid amount of money and go to an Oasis concert, you're having a sing-song? Are you worshipping there? Are you worshipping at Oasis? No, I mean half the champagne supernova. There's a lot of nonsense going on in the things they're saying. That doesn't sound like worship. Nothing wrong if you like Oasis. Don't pay to see them. Or maybe it's not about having a good time with music. Maybe it's just follow the rules. Follow the rules of how you worship God. Maybe you're from a church tradition. You grew up maybe going to a school where you had to, part of it was going to communion, going to mass. You know there were certain right words you had to say. Everyone sort of said them at once maybe. You go, well, we're saying the right words, aren't we? You might say what we call the Lord's Prayer or something. You didn't mean it. You weren't really meaning it. It's just what the teacher said to say or something. Is that worship? No. Cheers, thank you. So we've got these two extremes, haven't we? We've got this thing where it seems to be prescribing, like there needs to be a way that God is saying you do it this way. But also David's saying, but don't let people judge you when you're responding between me and the Lord. Any thoughts? Any thoughts? How do you think those two things can come together? Anybody, as we've been looking at this passage? Some of you have been worshipping a while in your lives. Have you ever thought about this? So, in this passage, it looks like David on one hand is saying, I just want to dance in my own clothes and no one should judge me for how I worship and praise God. But at the beginning of the passage, you see Uzzah, who they didn't keep the rules. They were meant to cover it and carry it with the priests. So it does look like there's sort of a strict structure that needs to be held to. How do we bring those two things together when we're talking about praise and worship of God? That's really helpful. Yeah, did everyone hear that? Like, you want to make sure it's real, but you used a really helpful word there, which is respectful, isn't it? And that's why I opened actually at the beginning of the service with that picture of fire. We like fire, but you should definitely respect fire, shouldn't you, guys? Yeah?
The first verse of the Lord's Prayer is, Father, may your name be kept holy. And so I guess a good way is if someone sees you doing something, whether that's worship or whatever it is in your life, are they going to respect the name of God or are they not going to respect his name? I think that's a good active test that I try and use sometimes. If someone sees me doing this and they know that I follow the Lord God, are they going to respect his name or are they going to not respect it? And I think that, that's a kind of a sort of test.
Yeah.
We want God's name to be revered. That's what we want. How do we achieve that?
And I think that's really thank you both of you, because you've used a really helpful word there, which is respect, isn't it? It's just, and not being funny, we do live in a world where we don't respect our leaders. You can go to other countries, they prize respecting elders, respecting a government, and in our culture we are not used to thinking that certain people deserve respect. But you guys have helpfully pushed us towards that as we approach God, we need to make sure that we're keeping one thing at the heart of it. And they had a very vivid picture. They had this Ark of the Covenant. It kept at the heart of everything who God was and what he was doing for them. And when it came to that, you need to guard it. You need to treat it like fire. You need to respect it. We use the word, we read it, holy. You don't think a mascot that you wave around at a football match is holy and respected. Maybe you do, you shouldn't. But it's not a way of saying this is our God who's on our side. Holiness in the Bible, as we read, is like a fire that consumes. You're careful around it. David was meant to show respect, cover the ark, be very careful who carries it and how they carry it. I'm really sorry, Fraser. You shared something helpful as we came in about how the significance was of carrying the ark. Do you mind just sharing it now for a second? Just stand up. It's like, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, just thinking about the way that Uzzah on the cart was holding it. He knew the rules. He'd been trained that he shouldn't touch the ark. But in his pride, he thought, I know better than God. But there was something deeper, something more precious. That actually, the way that the priests were meant to hold it, there were 2 poles and 4 priests, and they'd stand either side, 2 at the back, 2 at the front. But they had to carry the weight themselves of the ark, which contained the law of God and the weightiness of God's holiness. And I read this last week, I was saying today it was amazing. He was preaching on this, but I read this last week in my quiet time. And maybe this is just of God, the timing wise. This beautiful picture that it wasn't right that the holy ark of God should be on a cart. It had to be carried by the weight of a priest. And there was a priest, his name's Jesus. And he carried the weight of God's holy law for us. And it was a picture that was meant to be reenacted every time the ark was carried.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fraser. And the reason that when Fraser shared that, I thought it was really helpful because it's not just respect and seriousness for the sake of it. It's to keep at the heart of it what Jesus has done for us. Do you see that? And as Fraser was saying, like the weight of what Christ carried for us. It's not just for, you can whip up being really serious and miserable in the same way that you can whip really excited. But you keep the truth of Jesus and what he's done at the very heart of it, shaping everything. And once you've done that, from that point, then you respond. Does that make sense? You understand the weight of what Jesus has done. And you go, I've got that, I respect it, I honor it, I protect it, I guard it. But I can't contain it. I need to respond in a way that is specific to ourselves. Right, and authentic. I just want to sort of close now with some application, if that's okay. Firstly, it's as we invite you to Pendle Community Church, and maybe you've been coming along a little while, when we invite you to follow Jesus, to become a Christian, actually what we're inviting you to do is to become true worshippers, okay? Authentic worshippers, I'd even say. And the reason I say true worshippers is because, like it or not, everybody is a worshipper. You all worship something. You might say I don't. You might say, I don't go to church, I'm not religious. No. You do worship something. Everybody has that sense that I will make sacrifices in my life. I will sacrifice my time, my attention, my affection, my love. It's something that I just think is so worth it. And when you do that, you're worshipping it. It's like, actually, interesting. You could say we're made for worship. You could say that if they look at some of the ways people behave. But the Bible's got a name for it. When you apply it to things like mobile phones and money and holidays and cars and stuff like that, it's called idolatry. You might look at it like those old-timey people and they like bow down to little stones. And you go, that's a bit ridiculous, isn't it? Giving your life and your energy to that. How many times do we go, new iPhone's coming out? This is what we're going to give our life to. The Bible calls that idolatry. And when we call you to follow Jesus, we're saying none of that stuff is worth sacrificing in your life for. None of it. But you have the opportunity to have true worship. There is something we're inviting you to do. But what this passage is helping us do is we're inviting you to a life of worship. Saying, when I say that, I'm not just saying, why don't you come on Sunday and sing some songs with us? I love Rebecca's leading and things like that. But we're not just saying, do you like the music here? Why don't you, if you like those songs, you can spend your life singing those songs with us. If that was it, you go, well, is that really what this life is all about? Just singing some songs with Jesus' name in it? Isn't that, just stick to idolatry then? That's, just go to Oasis, What we're inviting you to do is to come around a fire pit, to engage in the eternal God, the one that is described here explicitly with Uzzah as having the power of life and death. That cannot be boring. At the same time, we're not inviting you to come and just feel really scared and really serious and sober and miserable. Just drawing some sort of religious tradition where you have to be very careful about the words you say. Just ceremonies about life and death. We are, and I think someone's already prayed it this morning, we're inviting you to grow in your understanding of what God has done for you, keeping at the heart those priests that carried the weight. Jesus carried that weight for you. God has not just ignored you in this world, but he knows you by name. And if he's calling you to follow him as a worshiper, he is calling you to a life of immense dignity and glory and a future and hope. And he's saying, stop thinking about the stupid idols of this world, but start getting your head around what God has done for you. Guard it. Respect it. Keep it at the center of your life. And when it's there, that fire pit, I'm going to keep using that image, in our hearts, you will respond. And don't let anyone judge you in the way you respond. Maybe you're a very quiet person. And actually, you're like, the way I respond is I'll just be quiet alone with the Lord. And I'll be moved. And I can spend hours alone quietly. And I'm responding to that heart of what he's done. Maybe David clearly likes music. He wrote a whole bunch of songs in here. So we know the sincere way for him to respond. He's leaping. He's dancing. He's joyful. But it's true for him. He is responding to what God has done. And that's what we're inviting each of you to do this morning. Guard at the heart of our lives what Christ has done for you and respond in a way that is faithful and authentic. Not ceremonial religion, feeling miserable for the sake of it, but shaping your life around what God has done for you. Amen? Amen. I'd like for us to, in one sense, continue this thought by, we don't have the Ark of the Covenant anymore in the same way, but we do have a different picture now. In the New Testament, if you've been familiar, you don't have a temple. Well, you do have a temple. What's the temple in the New Testament? The church is God's people, isn't it? So you had worship in the big first part of the Bible. You had worship in a big building, and you had fire there. Now you have worship with God's people. And you don't have an Ark of the Covenant, but you do have the truths about Jesus and what he's done for you. He gave his life for you. He gave his body for you. He gave his blood for you to take away all of your sins, give you complete forgiveness and peace with God. That is what we guard. That is what we respect. That's the flame at the center of this temple. And the way we're just going to close by remembering that now is by eating together.